Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar panel discussion entitled Archiving and Translating Ottoman Historic Records at Mount Athos, the Holy Mountain, by the Archons of the Ecumenical Patriarchate's Academia Symposium Committee, chaired by Archon Dr. George Zimar, PhD. My name is Lou Katsos, a member of the committee, and the East Mediterranean Business Culture Alliance's president, which is sponsoring this event, and I will be moderating this discussion. Our distinguished panel among the foremost authorities in the subject include Jamshid Tirani, PhD, and currently completing his second PhD in translation studies at Freie Univeritat Berlin, Dr. Vanessa D. Obaldia, Associate Lecturer at Goldsmiths College University in London, who will be presenting with Maciek Pawlicki, Head of the Cultural Heritage Imaging Laboratory at Cambridge University Library, Father Monk Kosmas Petris, PhD, Anastasios Nikopoulos, a jurist and law historian at the Free University of Berlin, Richard Wittman, PhD, Associate Director of the Orient-Institut in Istanbul, and Dr. Johannes Niehoff, Panagiotidis of the Free University of Berlin. Translating Ottoman documents is more than challenging due to their use of Ottoman Turkish, a complex linguistic blend of Turkish, Arabic, and Persian. The script, a modified Arabic alphabet, lacks clear vowel representations, making interpretations difficult. Additionally, anachronisms and the specialized legal and administrative terminology and regional dialects further complicate translations. Many manuscripts also contain dense calligraphy, abbreviations, and marginal annotations requiring expertise in paleography. The shift from Ottoman Turkish to modern Turkish in the Latin script in 1928 created another barrier, as fewer scholars today are proficient in reading these historical texts. Accurate translation demands linguistic, historical, and cultural expertise to ensure precise interpretation. The Ottoman records on Mount Athos provide a valuable historic perspective on the interpretations between the Ottoman Empire and the monastic community on this holy mountain, Mount Athos. A significant center of East Orthodox Christianity, became part of the Ottoman Empire and fell under Ottoman rule in 1430, when Sultan Murad II conquered Thessaloniki and its surrounding territories, including the monastic community of Athos. However, unlike the other conquered regions, Mount Athos retained a significant degree of autonomy. The sultans granted privileges to the monastic community, allowed it to continue functioning with relative independence in exchange for loyalty and the payment of taxes. These privileges were later reaffirmed by Mehmed II after the fall of Constantinople in 1453, and included allowing the monks to preserve their religious practices and self-governing status. The Ottoman records, primarily tax registers, property deeds, and legal documents, reveal the empire's complex approach to governing non-Muslim subjects. These documents illustrate the fiscal arrangements that enabled monasteries to pay taxes in exchange for protection and autonomy, preserving their land and spiritual traditions. The records also shed light on issues such as land disputes, economic contributions of the monasteries, and interactions with local Ottoman officials. Ottoman tolerance of Mount Athos reflects the pragmatic and flexible policies the empire applied to diverse communities, fostering stability. Thus, Ottoman records on Mount Athos not only document the mountain's administrative and economic history, but also reveal a unique coexistence between Islamic governance and Orthodox Christian tradition, providing insights into the broader dynamics of the empire's diverse society. Archiving and translating Ottoman records on Mount Athos is crucial for preserving insights into the empire's relationship with these Orthodox Christian communities, and translating these documents makes them accessible to a broader audience, offering valuable historical, cultural, and political perspectives. Such efforts help scholars understand Ottoman policies towards non-Muslim subjects while also preserving the heritage of Mount Athos and illuminating an important chapter in the history of interfaith interactions. The East Mediterranean Business Cultural Alliance, EMBCA, is honored to host this Archons of the Ecumenical Patriarchates Academia Symposium Committee event today. So thank you to all the panelists who are with us, and I'd like to start with our first panelist, Jamshid Tirani. Jamshid Tirani completed his PhD in translation studies at the University Sains, Malaysia in 2019, with a thesis focusing on the translation of phonological aspects of prose. He has worked as a freelance translator and editor since 1999 and has published in academic and literary journals. He is currently completing his second PhD in Byzantine Studies at the Freie Universitat Berlin, with a thesis focusing on Ottoman Persian religious relations and conflicts in the early 18th century. He has been working as a paleographer of Ottoman documents and manuscripts, primarily in the Hellenic Republic, Turkey, Iran, and Germany. Jamshid is coming to us from Tehran, I guess. Are you in Tehran?
In Isfahan.
Okay, that's even better. So you're coming in
Yes.
to us from Persia. Thank you for being with us today, and it's an honor to have you here.
My pleasure. Well, thank you, everyone. Good afternoon to some of you. Good evening to others. And let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Well, yes, we can see it.
Well, okay. So I will today talk about the Ottoman archive, actually my experience of the Ottoman archive of Mount Athos. Today I will talk about two main topics, my experience in Athos and the challenges of dealing with the archive there. From October 2023 to May 2024, I worked in the Holy Monastery of Pantokrator, and I had there a very unique experience. I worked as a paleographer, and at the same time, I had a very unique spiritual experience there. Actually, when I was there, I found out why it is called Holy Mountain, because I found out that the holiness is not confined only to the walls of the church. Every piece of, let's say, every tree, every piece of stone, everything, you could feel the holiness in Mount Athos. And this is the office I worked in. I had the blessing of working with Father Theophilus and for a short time also Professor Niehoff. And in this office, I had the view of actually a very beautiful view. This is the opposite of what you said, the waves. I was looking at the mountain. I could see the holy skit of Prophet Ilya there. And also, this is the door that I kept it open whenever I was working. I had to work. I could also hear the church there, and it was adding actually to the blessing of working in that office. Well, today I will talk about, it's very hard to shorten and to choose from the topics I could talk about. I talked about some of the challenges I faced, some of the general challenges I faced. The first type, or let's say the category of challenges I had there, was the themes and the content of the documents I worked with. The themes mainly were around these topics: the land ownership and the disputes, the taxation, including the jizya and the ush for non-Muslims, and especially the exemptions of the monasteries, mostly the firmans from the sultans that were confirming and reaffirming the exemption of the monasteries there, and also about the relation between the Orthodox clergy and the Ottoman authorities, and also the specialized terminology there, the misjurisdiction were among some of the challenges. So that is about the themes. The next one was about the proper names, the challenges including the people name and the place names. About the people names, I brought here two examples, let's say, very obvious examples. For example, the name Demetrius is transcribed in many different ways, including Demetrius, Demetrius, Demetriou, Demetri, Dimitri, as I put from one of the documents here. So here is Dimitri. And the other one is Panagiotidis. So it is transcribed as Panagiotis, Panagiot, Panagios, Panayot. And the one that I wrote here, even Panayod, ending with D even. So a lot of variations in transcription of the people name and also the place names. For example, the Athos itself was transcribed as Ionoros, Ainoros, or Aenoros. The Limnos, Limni, Ilimni, Kalimnos as Kalimnes, Gelimnes, Kalimnos, and many different types, and or Tassos. It was transcribed as Tashos, Tashus, Tashyus, and I had especially one of the first documents that I worked with. I faced this and I knew that it is a proper name, is a place name, because as you see here, the ones that can read is Tashyus, Pazasene. So I knew that it's a place name, it's a village or let's say a district name, but I was searching what is Tashyus. So Tash in Ottoman means stone and Yus means 100. So I was searching what is this place. And then I found out this Tashyus is Tassos. So this was one of the challenges, and it has a story that why it's they used Tash, maybe because it was famous for the stone, the marble. That was another challenge there. And maybe one of the most challenging parts was the hand of the scribes. We had the variation in hand. Some of them was very legible, some of them extremely cursive, very condensed. There was some regional and less standardized. When we say less standardized compared to the, let's say, to Constantinople, so was some of them less formal script. We had some abbreviations that were specific to a scribe. There were abbreviations that was hard to, let's say, decipher, and there were deterioration of the script. Sometimes we had the decline in the quality of handwriting. Some were very beautiful handwriting, and some were deteriorated. And sometimes the scribes were not much trained. I think that's all. It was very difficult, as I said, to choose what I talk about, but I just try to talk about. So during the time that I mentioned, I categorized, I worked only in the Holy Monastery of Pantocrator, and around 400 documents I categorized, and I think that's it. I try to stick to the 10 minutes that I could talk. Later, if there are topics, we can talk more. Thank you for listening. That's it.
Jamshid, thank you so much. And the audience should know that in Isfahan, the time zone is pretty late there. So thank you for being with us.
That's no problem. That is.
And thank you for being with us, and thank you for explaining to the audience how complex it actually is to decipher some of these documents that we're talking about. Our next panelist will be Dr. Vanessa Diobalda. with Maciek Pawlikowski. And Dr. Vanessa is an associate lecturer at the Department of History at Goldsmiths College, University of London. She's coming to us from London. Since 2020, she has been an affiliated scholar and Ottomanist for the ERC Starting Grant Project, Mount Athos in Medieval Eastern Mediterranean Society. She has a multidisciplinary background in Islamic and Middle Eastern studies, law, and Ottoman history, and is committed to gaining experience in the digital humanities. She has received a 5-month fellowship at New European College in Romania within the framework of the relevance of the humanities in the digital age program for the work on Simonopetra, Monastery's Ottoman Archive. Maciek is the head of the Cultural Heritage Imaging Laboratory at the University of Cambridge, where he's responsible for providing visual data content to the library readers and for digitization projects. He's a contributor to Standards for Archival Imaging, specializing in advanced and scientific imaging of cultural heritage artifacts. He is the co-investigator of the Small Performances AHRC funded project. Thank you both for being with us, and then please give us your presentation together. Thank you.
Thank you for your very kind introduction, Louis. I'll just share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
And you can hear me? Very good. So I begin by thanking the organizers of this panel discussion, Louis Katsos, for inviting my colleague Maciek and I to participate. I also extend my heartfelt gratitude to Archimandrite Abbot Eliseos and the community of the Holy Monastery of Simonopetra for their permission and blessings to work on their valuable collection of Ottoman archival documents. I take a moment to acknowledge our patrons and supporters. Simonopetra Monastery, Friends of Mount Athos Foundation of America, and the ERC Starting Grant Mammoths. I would also like to mention our collaborators with whom we have engaged in fruitful and mutually beneficial collaborations and cooperations. I also want to acknowledge the amazing project team and thereby emphasize the absolute necessity of international and multidisciplinary cooperation for the successful realization of such a complex and multifaceted project. While I won't mention all names here, I've included the fields and areas of speciality, and say that I'm happy to share the panel with two of very valuable team members, Father Cosmas and Maciek. And we have divided this presentation into 5 parts. First, I will speak briefly about Simonopetra Monastery's Ottoman Archive, the project objectives, cataloging, digitization, and achieved and forthcoming results. So, as you know, Simonopetra is one of the 20 Athenite monasteries, and the period, language, and type of their Ottoman archival collection are from the late 14th to 20th centuries, and this is of all of the monasteries. Specifically to Simonopetra, we're talking about the mid-1500s. So the documents are written in Ottoman, Turkish, Arabic, and there are Greek notes, handwritten or typed on the recto and verso. There are a large variety of different types of legal documents, some which I have mentioned here. The scripts are primarily Divani, Talik, Nesikh, and Rika. There are some documents containing the Siakat script, which are more to do with financial issues. The themes are vast, primarily related issues, taxes, tax obligations, incidents connected with the monasteries, and such as shipwrecks in the vicinity, which is quite a rare topic, but that I nonetheless wish to emphasize. And within these main themes, you also have sub-themes, which have somewhat been neglected, such as the issue of women's voices within the archival documents and multi-faith relations. So the project objectives are primarily the publication of the first comprehensive and complete book of the entire Ottoman archive of Simonopetra Monastery, and this will be published, hopefully, open access. And what does this consist of? The cataloging with the transliteration into Latin script, translation into English and Greek, annotation of people and place names, and commentary of the entire Ottoman archive. So there will be two catalogs, one in English and one in Greek, containing all of these elements. So the secondary objectives are the creation of a database for prosopography and toponyms, exhibitions, publications, workshops, lectures, and also this encourages the engagement of the scholarly community, as well as public engagement, research dissemination, and education. So the title of the cataloging project is, the acronym is Simona, meaning Simonopetra Monastery Ottoman Archive. And we're looking at specifically what we have completed, are in the process of completing within the first project year. That was 2024 to 2025. We have 50 Ottoman documents from the 16th century. They're written in Ottoman Turkish, some with Arabic phrases, and all of them have Greek notes. And they are a variety of documents, one of the most significant being the Vakfia, also known as a Vakifname. And the scripts are, we don't have siakat within these 50 documents. They're written in 4 main scripts, and they have a variety of things, mostly relating to properties and taxes, payments, debts, etc. And you also have a variety of locations mentioned within these documents, from the Athenite Peninsula to the Aegean Islands. And the catalogue format that we are planning is to have one-line summary, catalogue number, type, issuing authority and place, description, notes, short summary, as well as including the early editions, full transliteration into Latin script translation, mention of the other documents referred to, persons, prosopography if possible, places, toponyms, that is, and commentary. So a quick comment on the transliteration that we are using. So we are basing our transliteration on the EMBCA system, as well as Archbishop Athos. So it's EMBCA with some slight variations. And it's important to emphasize that there needs to be standardization, because there are Arabic phrases within these documents, Persian words. We have decided to transliterate the entire document, regardless of which languages it is in, according to the Ottoman Turkish transliteration system. So, I mean, even the rectifications, seals, legal opinions, etc., that appear in Arabic will be transliterated according to Ottoman Turkish. And I'll give you an example of this in a judicial document, as you see in front of you. And so this document essentially is about an uncle of a woman called Maria, who inherits, well, as a donation, receives as a donation, a gift from her uncle, some olive groves on Thasos. And what you see here on the recto is written in pen and pencil. You have notes. So these notes can often tell us a little bit more information about the document, often linking it to other documents within the Ottoman archival collection. And many of them contain this one word, achriston, I hope I pronounced that correctly, which means not usable or unusable, and this pertains to the actual monastery. For them, the document was not usable as a legal document within a certain court case. So, as I mentioned with the ratifications, you see the ratification of the deputy judge of Thasos Island. So this ratification is written in Arabic. However, the transliteration is according to the Ottoman system. And here you have an example. Regarding the translation, this is slightly more complex. So you have, I'm giving you an example of a quote within the same document, a quote from the uncle who is saying that he had gifted his freehold property. So a literal translation will result in a lot of repetition, because in Ottoman Turkish, not only is there no punctuation, there is also a lot of repetition. And because most of these are legal documents, they are very formulaic in their language. So as a result, you have to kind of make it more concise if you want an idiomatic translation. However, there are elements you have to be really careful of, because when talking about inheritance, for example, you cannot simply say, oh, it's then translate it, my sister's daughter. You have to be careful not to just translate it so easily as niece, because you have to have an understanding of the legal rules, the Islamic rules of inheritance, the division of inheritance. So it's important to know that Maria is the sister's daughter as opposed to the brother's daughter. And there are also other examples. So at times when it's referring to legal issues, repetition is necessary. And this can be explained through annotations. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Maciek, who will speak a bit more about the digitization aspect.
Good evening and dobry wieczór. My name is Maciek Pawlikowski. Thank you for having us. So one thing to mention at the beginning that is that all archive we're interested in is already digitized in higher resolution photography, and what I will be talking about may be about more advanced methods which allow us to learn more about the manuscripts as the materials. And in photography, when it comes to archive, we have a few different challenging objects depending on their materiality. So if they're very small, oversized, transparent, obscure, shiny, then we have certain answers when it comes to addressing those and presenting them to the public. And they, for instance, for oversized images, we can tile the different captures and create really high resolution, extremely high resolution images where we can see more details. Or when we have some semi-transparent, or not even semi-transparent, we can we can undertake that challenge by using different light methods. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples which might be applicable to the to the archive as we have it. And here is the example of medieval scroll. It's not particularly interesting, except we discovered that there in the university library that there is a fold in which there is the inscription. So if we can show Vanessa and Nagda the animation, you can see that we're using transmissive image. So the image from underneath, so the light from underneath the scroll. Can we play that video? Or can you move to another slide? That should show that there is, yes, there is an inscription here which has been uncovered using transmissive image. So the transmissive light can give us more details about what's within the material, such as paper, textile, or parchment. So simply you can learn more about materiality of the object, which can give you the example. So here we knew that the monks who created that inscription, they thought this is the last part of the membrane, and they written down on it, and then they had to add another membrane, and they simply rewrote that phrase from the fold down the line. So if I can have, so that's the possible application. Next slide, please. And here the example of the image stitching, which can be very interesting with the examples of the textiles or the paper which has certain texture. If we really have a big, if we have really big objects, big scrolls or big maps, then we can enhance the visibility of really, you would think, perhaps not important features, but they might tell us more about the materiality of it. So for instance, this map you see, this is 2 by 2 meters more or less, and you can get this amount of detail where you can see the single thread and stretch of the textile. And we know how it's made, looking at the stitches, etc. And we can even see the pigment here. So that would be another method which could be applicable for learning about these objects. Next slide, please. And here we have the example of 2 Greek texts which are covered as a palimpsest. So they are fairly visible. You would say in many occasions like that, people tend to use the multispectral imaging or more scientific methods to uncover the text. However, if it's even briefly visible, it is still possible to recover the difference between the pigments using traditional color image. So one of the methods is called luminosity masking. It's very complicated process in Photoshop. I'm not going to bore you with that. However, it can give you results, as you see, that you can separate one text from the other. And the same research question can be answered with different idea, which if you move to another slide, I can show you the text which I recovered last week. Also, this one is Arabic manuscript, and I'm not sure what's the inscription at the back, but that's the same idea. I have slightly different color of the ink, and I only use this color image. So since we are in digital imaging realm, what I like to think about is the images as they are the digits. Each pixel has assigned number, so you can compute them. And here I took 2 channels from 3 available for one color image. I think it was red and blue. And I processed them and computed them in the way that simply I could cancel almost or make less visible the overlaying text, and the underlying text is much more standing out, as you see on that example, therefore readable. Can I have next? Thank you. And here, I would like to introduce the idea of reflection, of how the light reflects from the object, because so far I mentioned the transmissive and image processing in the way of the traditional flat objects. However, nothing is really flat. Even the manuscripts, which are slightly textured, they have thick paper, they have different reflectance. And what is reflectance here? We can divide it to two different types of the reflectance. One is specular, which means the light reflects directly back into the camera lens, and the diffuse reflectance is the one which this number of angles which reflect towards the side of the camera, so they reflect different way, and the intensity of the reflection is different. So if you know exactly the position of the light, and if you know exactly the position of the camera, then with the software you can render and recalculate the texture of the actual object. Can I have the next slide, please? And here's the example. If you play that little video, this is something we use quite often at Cambridge University Library. It's called reflectance transformation imaging. So you have 50 small LED lights. You can put object in the middle and then render the textures as you see on the right-hand side, which first one is the left, the first one on the left, this is the metal punch. So this metal object, as you can see on the video, it's no longer than 5 centimeters. However, the albedo map, which is one on the left, it shows you not just a regular flat image. You can see the depth of the shadow and details of how it's made, and you can enhance it using normals map, which is pretty standard 2.5D technique, you would say. And you can also use specularity. So here on the right-hand side image, we only calculate the specular refraction. So the ones which goes directly into the light and create this kind of maybe colorless, but very, very rich in texture representation of the object. And you can learn more about how the object was made using these techniques. And this is what we are hoping for the documents like this, which is not only very rich, but it's also in very difficult physical conditions. So for preservation of this, we could learn much more about how it has been made. There's system of decorations. We know it's somehow pasted to the paper. With standard high resolution photography, we cannot see that straight away and identify it very clearly. Now, using this kind of different visualization, we may be able to, and we may be able to learn a little bit more how it was made. And the next slide, please. And one of the controversial part is the gold, because gold exists in different shapes and colors, but also for the manuscripts, it can be applied as a gold leaf or can be applied as a golden powder. So perhaps creating the visualizations of the manuscripts where we can distinct those methods that also can give us a bit more information about the background of those manuscripts as the objects. And thank you very much.
Maciek, a small question for you. In terms of the documents, do you need the physical, do you have to go to where the physical document is, or do they send it to you to the laboratory, or how does the process work?
So that depends on first of all, the research question. Second of all, the project. And for this project, I'm involved not as a representative of the library. So library is not participating in the project. I'm helping Vanessa to find the research questions and the ways to answer them. And we are still on the stage of gathering information and learning more about what we have already available and what else can we learn if we could, let's say, re-photograph it with different methods. Maybe there is something we can do with processing of the existing images. It all depends on the research questions and how we formulate it.
Okay, but is it your intent at some point to go and actually digitize it yourself, or it's just from photographs? Or
I hope that could be a possibility. With some of them, definitely, like the role we showed on the previous example is quite complex. It's very complex object. You can see different stamps, which might tell us different things. You can see there is a pencil inclination. You can see the damage. You can see the pattern. I think for this, ideally, would be good to set up a little studio somewhere we could investigate it for a bit longer.
Okay, we'll come back to it when we have the open discussion.
May I just
Yeah,
add
please.
a note?
Yeah, please.
It should be also be taken into consideration that at different times, Ottoman documents, if they were imperial, had also watermarks. This is an important point for datation, because it, of course, like in Byzantium, you have different watermarks at different times. Now, in the earliest time, the 15th century, the Ottomans used Italian paper. So you find Genoese or Venetian watermarks on this. This helps a lot for this datation and if a document is genuine.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. If I can answer this, I think for the watermarks identification, the little, probably very simple setup of infrared light would be very beneficial.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that in the open questions. Our next.
Sorry, Louis, could I just complete the presentation? I'm sorry.
Oh, my apology.
No,
go ahead. My apology.
Okay, so I just want to conclude by mentioning the results to date, as well as forthcoming year 2 project results. So as a result of international and multidisciplinary collaborations, more than the initially intended objective has been achieved for the first project year. Furthermore, we have highlighted neglected aspects of Athenite history, such as women, interreligious relations, and endangered archives. So here we have already made very good progress on the cataloguing of the 16th century Ottoman archival documents. 2 articles have been published in peer-reviewed journals. We've had 5 international exhibitions and displays and 4 presentations at international conferences and workshops. And as I mentioned, the neglected themes have been highlighted. So looking forward, the project year 2, which has already commenced 2024 to 2025, we're looking at cataloguing the entire 17th century archive, which are approximately 100 documents. There's also going to, we're planning a publication and exhibition about the Metochion, which is a dependency, was a dependency of Simonopetra Monastery near Bucharest called St. Nicholas, and further research on Athos and women, multi-religious relations, and nature. And this will be facilitated through sponsors, as well as the 5-month fellowship that I have received at the New York College in Bucharest. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Maciek. Our next presenter is Monk Kosmas Simonopetritis. Panagiotidis Kiranoudis is a PhD researcher of linguistics on the subjects of the history of the Hellenic language and Balkan linguistics, and also a specialist in the historical archives of Mount Athos, Byzantine, Modern Hellenic, Ottoman, Slavonic, where he lives as a monk in the monastery of Simonopetras. He has a Master of Science from the Department of Linguistics, Faculty of Letters at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, from which he also obtained a diploma of postgraduate studies on the topic of Turkish, econyms of Greece, etymology, interpretation, morphological and phonetic analysis. His main work is on his doctoral dissertation, which is edited. His main work is the doctoral dissertation, Morphology of the Turkish Loanwords in Modern Greek, edited by the Institute of Modern Greek Studies. He has published scholar studies and articles on toponyms, Greek and Turkish Slavic dialects of Balkan Peninsula, Byzantine history, history of Mount Athos, Metochia, and many other things. Thank you, Monk Kosmas, for being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Louis Katsos, and thank you for your invitation. And I would like to transfer the wishes and the blessing of our abbot of the monastery, Father Eliseos Simonopetritis. And how can I share the PowerPoint?
Well,
Or Mr. Margaritis could
okay, good.
please. Okay. I will speak about the publication project of the Ottoman Archive of the Holy Monastery of Simonopetra. Vanessa has presented an introduction, and I will continue with more details about it. Please, next. We can continue. Yes.
Yeah, no, you
next
got it.
photograph.
You got it. Yeah.
I have this. Okay. And how can I proceed? Okay. And back. Okay. The name of the project in English refers to the founder of Simonopetra, Saint Simon the Bearer. You can see the most ancient icon of Saint Simon saved in the monastery, which is since 1702. And the project is directed by the Holy Monastery of Simonopetra with the participation of the Director of Research of the National Hellenic Research Foundation, Dr. Ilias Kolovos, Dr. Vanessa Deobaldia, and me. The aim of the project is the complete publication and translation in Greek and English of the Ottoman documents kept in the monastery of Simonopetra since the 16th century. According to the old cataloging of Professor Vasilis Dimitriadis, the Ottoman documents of the monastery number 372 documents, most of them dating from the end of the 19th century. If we add some more recent documents that were not included in Dimitriadis' catalog, the total number of Turkish documents in the monastery archives amounts to about 600. Just a moment. To about 680 documents. And in the photograph you can see an Ottoman document from Simonopetra Archive as a Hughet judicial decision of 1590. The fire of the year 1580, almost the entire oldest Ottoman archive of Simonopetra, together with its Byzantine and post-Byzantine Greek archives up to 1580, was burned in the first catastrophic fire of the monastery on 11th of December of that year. As is known from the historic research, the Simonopetrites monks were considering leaving the monastery. To prevent this from happening, the community settled them in the monastery of Xenophontos, which is not very far from the monastery, is after Daphne, on the same coast of Holy Mountain. Where they jointly assumed the important, the huge debt of Xenophontos Monastery at about 200,000 aspera in Greek. Soon the Simonopetrites, the monks from Simonopetra, restored the monastery, and they came back in less than 2 years. Please, next. Yes. A friend in need is a friend indeed. According to a judicial decision of 1581, Hughet, the monks of the monastery of Xenophontos affirm that they themselves are responsible for the repayment of their debts and not the Simonopetrites who lived with them after the fire, but had now returned to their monastery. Here is an Ottoman document that documents an important moment both for the Brotherhood of Simonopetra and for the solidarity among the Athonites monks in general. Is a Hujjet of 1581. Next, please. Turco-Athonica. It is of particular importance to publish the Ottoman documents kept in the archives of the monasteries of Mount Athos. These publications should follow the strict model of the Archives de la Tos series, which is the series used to publish the documents of the Byzantine period. The careful reading and the editing of historical documents is the cornerstone of historical research and the formulation of broader positions and conclusions for the benefit of the progress of scholarly research and ultimately of knowledge. Please, next one. In our project, each document is first sorted into the edition along with its metadata, which includes the title we give, the origin, the date, and its correct conversion to the Julian and Gregorian calendars, the type of document based on Ottoman diplomatic classifications, the description, the issuing authority, and the place of issue, and the notes on the front and back covers, whether contemporary or later. Metadata. Here we have a sale of estate to Simonopetra in its metochion in the area called Trigi in the island of Limnos. Identity of the document. Simonopetra Monastery Ottoman Archive, catalog number 58. Data 3 until 13th of September of 1578. Type is Hujjet, judicial decision, but the document itself refers to as proof, Temeshuk. Issuing authority and place of issue. The judge in the Sharia court of Limnos, Iceland. Description is an original, script talik, and the material is paper. Preservation is not too bad. Notes in Greek on verso, which are contemporary with the document. Έτου το Χοτζέτσι, ένα του Μίνι, του Κυριάκου που εξόφλησε τον ένα χρόνο. That means in English, this Hujjet concerns Elemin, which was the assistant of the Ottoman, Elemin, the assistant of the Ottoman state, and Kyriakos, who has paid for a whole year. Please, next one. Transcription system. Then each document is first issued by transcribing it from Ottoman Turkish based on the transcription system of the International Journal of Middle East Studies, enriched for full transcription from Ottoman Turkish. Next, please. Transliteration. Here you can see an example of transliteration of the aforementioned document. Please, next one. Below we will see an exact translation of the original document in English. Please, next one. Here is a translation in English. Please, next one. Persons. In these documents we have now, after the translation, we mention all the persons who appear in the document, and we have the Mehmed son of Ali, who was the Kadi, the judge on the island of Limnos. Rizos Sofianos was the seller of the estate. The first name, Rizos, comes from the common name Riza, root, and it is an euphemistic name that means to have strong roots. Rizos Sofianos, and Sofianos is a very common Greek surname. Konomos maximum. Konomos, it is official of the monastery, and usually this name was ascribed to the monks, was given to the monks who were responsible for a metochio outside of Holy Mountain. And probably this Maximus was the same with monk Maximus, who appears in the document number 182 in Sithonia Longos in the year 1582. And then we have the names of the witnesses who also were participated in this in the same sale, and they were Yusuf Çelebi, fortress commander, the Dizdar, Ibrahim Çelebi, governor, Emin, Memi, son of Murad, the superintendent, Nazir in Turkish, Mehmet Çelebi Mustafa, and Hussein, the market inspector, Muhtasib. Please, next one. Places. We have in these documents the village of Thavmasto, which can be identified with the Byzantine village to Zevmata, which appears in Byzantine sources seen 1346. And so we have the continuity of the place names, where in this place, Thavmasto or Zevmata, the monastery of Megisti Lavra had the important metochion of Panagia Kakaviotissa, as we can see from the Byzantine documents of Lavra. It appears also in the Ottoman register of 1490 as Zamata, and the village was located at the southwestern part of the island, between the villages Thanos and Kondeas. In the 19th century appeared two villages, Paleos Zimatas and Zimatas, which were mentioned as abandoned, but the place name Zimatas survives to the present day. The village does not exist today. The Ottoman form Zamata of 1490 leads us to a form Zamata, Zavmata, that was reanalized as Thavmasta, and then in singular Thavmasto of the present document, and the origin of the place name is the substantive Zevmatas, which means in Greek farmer, owner of a pair of animals for plowing, and from Zevma, Zevmatos, which means link, bond. Please, next one. Commentary. The publication is completed by the necessary commentary of the document in English and in Greek. In the commentary, we include the basic data on the monastery's properties based on the general inventory of Mount Athos made by Mr. Elias Kolovos in his dissertation. Please, next one. An example of comments on the above mentioned document. It is not unusual for a metochion to be called a monastery. Here we have the phenomenon that instead of the term metochio, the Ottoman document uses the term monastery. Because it was not easy for the Ottomans to distinguish between monasteries and metochia. In the present case, the document concerns the metochion of Trigi in Limnos of Byzantine origin, which is in the possession of Simonopetra monastery up today. Please, next one. Here is a photograph of the metochion of Trigi in Limnos as it is today. The metochion was restored in the different periods, and in this form as we see it in the photograph, it is from the beginning of 18th century. Please, next one. The bilingual edition of the Ottoman documents of the monastery of Simonopetra will be published as a part of the series Athonika Simikta of the Institute of Historical Research of the National Hellenic Research Foundation, as a sub-series for the edition of the Ottoman documents under the supervision of Elias Kolovos, who has been appointed recently as Director of Research in Ottoman Studies. The first bilingual volume, which will include the documents of the 16th century archive, is expected to be published in this year, followed by the next with the 17th century documents in 2026. The publication will be possible thanks to the sponsorship of the Athanasios and Martino Foundation, which will cover the first two volumes. We hope to cover the first two volumes. The National Hellenic Research Foundation will then undertake to explore the possibility of digital publication of the Ottoman documents with their transcription and translations in order to create easier access to the international scientific community. Next, please. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Monk Kosmas. Let me ask you a question, because a lot of the documents that you're talking about relate also to land sales, land transfers, and things of that nature. So, and what you're saying basically is that some of these actual documents are to this day. In other words, you were talking about one particular property in Limnos, for example.
Yes,
that to this day is controlled by the monastery based on those documents.
Yes, that's true, and these documents are very important for the monastery, because in every case that we have, we have
a dispute. Let's say you have a dispute.
A dispute with the state or with the other. We have to present these documents, and so they are in use every time when we have a case, a dispute with the state, or even when we're going to make a declaration to the land registration of the state, because now we have this period, the land registration, which expires in a few days, and we have to present these documents and to deposit them to the land registration.
No, thank you for that, because that's very important. And we'll get back to that when we have.
May I
yes,
just
please,
make
please,
a very brief note?
Yeah.
The Archive de Athos is a long story, which is complicated and not to be developed here. But very often, the level of this publication, it does not fit to modern exigencies. This means most of them, for example, Denis Chrysanthou and others, were trained classical philologists. And apart from the fact that they did not publish the non-Greek documents, the level of especially the latest volume, for example, Vatupedi number 3, is not very encouraging. So to a certain degree, some of these documents, especially when they concern the status of the Mount Athos, must be re-edited. No, this is in the 50s, 60s, whatsoever, in the time of Le Merle and Economides. Many things, for example, they did not know modern Greek normally, except when they were Greeks. So they styled these documents into a classical manner, which is not fitting. So much of this work has to be redone.
I see. Very, very important. We'll get back to that in the open discussion. Our next. Thank you, Yanya, for that. That's very important. Our next panelist is Anastasios Nikopoulos. He's a jurist and law historian who teaches history and institutions of Roman, Byzantine, and post-Byzantine law at the Freie Universitat Berlin. He specializes in Athenian law as a researcher, has served as a legal advisor to Mount Athos, and has authored scientific studies, monograms, numerous articles, and presentations at scholarly conferences at various academic topics of the Athonian and more broadly of Byzantine and post-Byzantine law. Thank you so much for coming with us today and being here, Anastasi. We had chatted before in another panel discussion we had when you and Yanni basically had discovered some of the oldest Ottoman archives actually in the world. So thank you for being with us today and making a presentation. Thank you.
I thank you, Luis, for organizing this interesting panel and for invitation. Athonian regime, as we know, the Athonian administrative and institutional status, it's a paradigm, is a pattern of the sustainability of some institutions throughout the history. Mount Athos is existing since the Middle Byzantine period until today. Just after the change in the Byzantine history and the change in the capital in Constantinople, because it's merely a change, not a fall. We are making a mistake, maybe, to consider the year 1453 as a fall. The Ottoman authorities replaced the Byzantine authorities because Byzantine Empire was destroyed and met decadence under its own sin, its own mistakes. The Byzantine administration, the Byzantine government of the last century of Byzantine history was a disaster history. So the Ottoman came as the new power and just replaced the Byzantine authority. This example is evident in the case of Mount Athos. Mount Athos continued its life, not only its institutional life, but also its historical life under the Ottoman, just in the same like under Byzantine rule. This evidence is quite probably in the pattern, in the examples of ownership, for example, of ownership of dependencies. Ottoman authorities never put a hand of attack on these dependencies as they put any attack on the peninsula of Mount Athos. The peninsula of the Monks' Republic of Mount Athos was an asylum, not only a ban, an Avaton rule for the women, but also it existed for the peninsula of Mount Athos, a rule of asylum for military. Nobody, Ottoman military, never entered Ottoman army into the monks' area. Never. There was residing a representative of each sultan as a kind of ambassador of the sultans, of each sultan in Caries, in the capital, even into the frame of very critical and very difficult periods of revolutions, for example, of revolution into the surrounding. The monks' area of Mount Athos was remaining ever quiet, without any attack, any penetration of military, and any damage. Of course, throughout the Ottoman history, we have many cases of legal regulations about tax affair, about tax questions, and the reason was ever plausible. The fortune of Attonian monasteries, namely the dependencies, was ever augmentating, growing up for different reasons. Donations, especially donations, exchange of fortune, and other juridical reasons conducted to an augmentation of monastery fortune. Because the basically monastery fortune, the dependencies, was considering as a gift, as an endowment of the monasteries, because monasteries have a long life duration, and endowment used as the supporting, as the material supporting for the work and for the purpose of a monastery. A Byzantine monastery has always a thousand years history. So during its history, an Attonian monastery was supported by its dependencies. The dependencies was the satellite of a monastery scattered throughout the Balkan Peninsula, even in Russia, in Moscow. In Moscow, they existed during the Tsar period, some Attonite dependencies also. These dependencies were not only an asset, the asset fortune of the monastery, but they were functioning as the representative of Mount Athos into the frame of the local society. We have evidence of great and important influence of each dependencies on the local cultural and social history. In Romania, in Russia, in all Balkan countries where in the past existed many dependencies of the Athonian monastery, we had great evidence of this productive relationship between the dependencies and the local society. Just after the dissolution of Ottoman Empire, we have just only national states, and into the frame of national states, we have many cases of confiscations, of alienation of almost all dependencies, even in Greece. Even in Greece, just after the change of 1912, 1913, the then Greek government into the reality confiscated the most of Attonite dependencies. During the Ottoman history, Ottoman, the Sultanic, especially the Sultanic rule protected these dependencies. Although the local pashas, the local governors, remaining in a tendency with the Sultan, they created some troubles concerning the Athonite dependencies all over the territorium of Ottoman Empire. But sultans from the capital were all sultans without any exception. They were protecting these components of the Ottoman status. We have many documents, many deeds, evidenced this issue. So what? All these documents are very important, not only for the local history, not only for the Athonian history, and not only for Ottoman history, but for the world history about the relationship of tolerance and coexistence. And especially, it's very important, especially for our era, for this, up to date, this tolerance and this rule of coexistence between different religions into the frame of the history of Mount Athos institutions is quite important to derive rules and principles also for our period. I thank you very much for this invitation and for this organization.
Thank you, Anastasios. I will say for the audience that although, as you mentioned, Anastasios, the sultans did not confiscate, did not come in militarily, etc. I will say that during the Fourth Crusade, 1204, with the fall of Constantinople, during that brief period of time, there were in fact incursions, etc., that took place. And of course, the Ottomans came back in and took over a lot of those areas. In terms of the dependencies, let me ask you just a simple question, and we'll get back to it maybe in the general discussion. Are there still arguments taking place in terms of properties that are within, let's say, the north, as you said, about 1912, 1913? Certain things were confiscated from the monasteries, certain properties. There's still arguments taking place about the confiscation of those properties by the Hellenic government.
It's a very complicated affair, because following the paradigm of Greek government, also the foreign government in Serbia and Bulgaria also confiscated also in parallel to the Greek government the Athonite dependencies situated in these countries.
I see.
Yes, as you know, Lou, it's confiscating this affair of confiscation of Athonite dependencies in 20th century, not during the Ottoman history, during the Ottoman period, but just after the dissolution of Ottoman Empire by the modern Greek state. It's quite
no, and we'll discuss that later. So basically, what you're saying is the dependencies also within what is currently the Republic of Turkey also has a lot of issues with regards to the confiscation of different properties, etc. That were really the property of the Republic, or let's say of Athos. Okay. we'll come back to that because that's an interesting topic. Our next panelist, and thank you for being here, is Richard Wittman, PhD. He's a historian of the Middle East and co-director of the Orient-Institut, Istanbul, a German humanities research center in Turkey. After studying law, Islamic and Turkish studies at Ludwig Maximilius University in München and Freie Universitat of Berlin, he earned his doctorate in history and Middle Eastern studies from Harvard with a dissertation on intercommunal dispute resolution between Christians and Jews in 17th century Istanbul. His research focuses on the legal and social history of the Ottoman Empire, particularly Islamic law, legal practices of non-Muslims, identity and coexistence in multi-ethnic Ottoman state, and autobiographical sources for Ottoman history, especially in the 19th and earliest 20th centuries. Dr. Wittman has published extensively and curated 3 exhibitions in 2023 and 2024. In 2024, he produced Traugott, a documentary on the German scholar Traugott Fuchs, who fled to Turkey to escape Nazi persecution. The film was shown at festivals across Europe. At the Orient-Institut of Istanbul, he supervises research on Ottoman social history, including projects in the Feraköy Protestant Cemetery, autobiographical sources, and the legendary and legacy of Traugott Fuchs. He also edits 2 publication series, Memoria, an individual and empire in the Near East, co-author with the co-author Christoph Hirschak. His current research explores the monks' republic of Mount Athos, whose archives contain valuable Ottoman Turkish sources, shedding new light on over 500 years of Ottoman rule in the Eastern Mediterranean. Thank you for being with us, Richard, and thank you for sharing your presentation with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I've been privileged enough to have visited Mount Athos 4 to 5 times in the past 2.5 years, 3 years. And what I've seen there in terms of the treasures, archival holdings is just unbelievable. And it is truly part of the cultural heritage of mankind that needs all of us to preserve it as much as we can. As much as it is a treasure that inspires and that gives ideas to researchers to explore, it is something that is terribly in danger. And I don't need to remind you of the devastation of the recent fires in California. Greece is haunted by fires. Also, Mount Athos had its share. We heard from Pater Cosmas about the terrible fire at his monastery in 1580. There is a constant danger that these holdings may get lost. So we've heard about many wonderful initiatives today to document the holdings, to preserve them, to interpret them, to use modern technology to make sense even of things that are not visible to the pure eye. But I think what is just as important, and perhaps more important to start with, is to scan all the holdings of Mount Athos to preserve for next generations. We cannot count on all these treasures to be around long enough to catalog them, to analyze them, and to fix missing pages. I think it's really crucial to first preserve this whole treasure, and then also when cataloging and analyzing the holdings to use the most modern technologies that have become available to us to make sense of these holdings, because what we're talking about is not a small collection, and we're just talking about the Ottoman holdings. We're talking about documents from a 500-year time period. Mind you, Mount Athos has been independent for longer under the Ottomans than under the Byzantines. It's a long period of time, and we've already heard Mr. Nikopoulos speak about the metochia, the land holdings outside of Athens. We're talking about documents pertaining to the wider Eastern Mediterranean, to the Middle East, to the Balkans. It's an incredible treasure that we're talking about. As an Ottoman historian, it's just fantastic to get to see these documents. Some of the documents which predate the conquest of Istanbul and which lead us to a time when the Ottomans had to interact with the Christians, with the monks on Athos, but also with the Byzantine rulers in a different way than they did later on. They interacted in a way on equal footing. And we see these in some of the early documents. These are very different in nature from later Muslim conquests in Syria and Egypt. So these texts are very fascinating on a number of accounts. Mount Athos itself is an oddity in Islamic law terms. In Islamic law terms, there was no such thing as an autonomous area. If you were a non-Muslim, you were granted some privileges as a non-Muslim that would respect your religion, some of your religious practices, that would give you a legal status which was overall inferior to that of a Muslim. But this was bound to your person. It was not bound to a territory. Mount Athos, however, is a vast territory. We're talking about 130 square miles. It's enormous. There are very few other examples in the Muslim world where Christians retained something similar. One example that comes to mind is Ragusa, Dubrovnik. But Mount Athos is 16 times the size of Dubrovnik. It's a whole other league. And also the rights given to the merchants of Dubrovnik were very limited compared to this world, and Mr. Nikopoulos mentioned that, which was throughout history more or less untouched by the Ottoman authorities. Yes, there were tax payments, there were representatives of the Ottomans on the ground, but the monasteries were able to regulate their affairs according to their own time-honored principles. All of this is worth studying, and it will certainly not only help us understand the history of Mount Athos over this half a millennium better, it will most of all, it will help us understand better the flexible approaches that the Ottomans had in dealing with their Christian flock. It was a system which was much more flexible than the legal scholars often want to accept it according to the law books. And to study this, I think, is an enormously important project that should be undertaken as a cooperative project. Already in the 1930s, two German scholars, Lemmerle and Wittek, wrote that it needs to be studied. The Ottoman archives are such a treasure for this part of the world. Mount Athos has a unique treasure that remains to be discovered. However, this is nothing that can be achieved by one university, culture even. The scholars in the state of Greece are just not numerous enough to tackle such a big set of documents. This takes an international effort. So you mentioned I'm here at the Orient-Institut. So a few years back, we reached out to the monks of Mount Athos, to the abbots, and I've been able to meet a lot of their representatives, including Pater Cosmas, who also showed me their holdings at Simonopetra. And we would like to assist as academics with the research of these holdings. But to start with, I really think we have to consider a big digitization project to make sure that nothing is lost in the process of cataloging. Much has been achieved already. The work conducted at Simonopetra, but also Pantocrator, also at in Karies is really remarkable, and all of this has come to wonderful fruition. But there is so much more to be done. If we think alone of 20 large monasteries and their holdings, they have dependencies. There are documents in the smaller subunits that are not even accounted for. This is an enormous project, and I would like to encourage everybody to work together. We, as an academic research institute, we have formed a consortium of academic scholars based in the United States, in Germany. We're reaching out to our Greek colleagues to bring together the best people in the field to build a catalog, to build an inventory as a first step to preserve this incredible treasure. As a first step, though, we really, I believe, have to digitize the whole holdings and do this in the best form available at this point, and also use modern technology to read the texts. It's simply too many texts to be tackled by the few Ottoman experts. We've heard about the difficulties by Vanessa Dobaldia to deal with these texts, but also by Jamshid. It's not easy material. However, in the past 5 years, technology has come a great length to develop automated reading tools. A great success has been achieved for Western languages already, also for Russian, to some degree, even for Chinese. And this gives us an opportunity to develop a tool to tackle the texts of Mount Athos if we come together and do this jointly. And this is my plea and suggestion, also an offer as a research institute that sees it as its task to facilitate such projects. And I hope we will be able to contribute to this.
Thank you so much, Richard. And many of the things that you said are extremely important. Obviously, and we'll discuss it, I think, when we just have an open discussion. Obviously, there's a lot of money that's required in order to do this type of project. But what you're stating is correct. I mean, if digitizing everything now, so at least to preserve it, because as you say, as time goes on, certain things through fires, climate change, etc., some of these things can be destroyed. And the international effort is very interesting. Is this a united? Is this formulated? This international effort, is it in progress?
It's in progress, and as I said, I've been involved in negotiations with the heads, the custodians of various archives on Mount Athos, also with some of the abbots for 3 or 4 years now. It's been really hard to find a model to tackle the specific situation of digitizing on Mount Athos, an area which is limited in terms of access, which is also very difficult to access in some respects. You mentioned one of the monasteries that feels like a hotel, which is extremely developed. Others are not so. And for not all of the monasteries do we even have an inventory. So there's a lot of different approaches that we need to even get the digitization done. And fortunately enough, this fall, we were able to find a solution that we have now proposed to the monks on Mount Athos, and we hope that they will find that attractive to consider, so we can move on with these ideas.
Thank you so much, Richard. Our next presenter is Dr. Johannes Niehoff Panagiotidis. He is a scholar of Byzantine studies, historical linguistics, and Byzantine Jewish relations. Of Istanbul Greek heritage, he is fluent in modern Greek and German, proficient in English, Italian, French, Spanish, classical Byzantine Greek, Latin, and good in Russian, Bulgarian, Turkish, Arabic, Hebrew, Persian, with basic proficiency in Croatian, Serbian, Romanian, and Syriac. Since 2007, he has been a professor of Byzantine Studies at the Free University of Berlin, previously holding positions at Central European University, at the University of Mainz, and Freiburg University. He has earned his PhD in comparative linguistics and habilitation in Byzantine and Neo-Greek philology from the University of Tübingen and the Free University of Berlin, respectively. His research is extensive. It spans Byzantine historiography, Ottoman archival studies, and Judeo-Greek texts. He holds fellowships he has held fellowships at Princeton and the German Research Foundation. Recent work includes Ottoman archival research at the German Orient-Institut, where Richard is at, in Istanbul, and a guest professorship at Bogazici University, Urban History of Constantinople. Among his publications are Kini and Diglossia, Translation and Reception, the Byzantine, Modern Greek, and Old Spanish versions of Kalila wa Dimna, and Monks and Ottomans, Athos monasteries in Byzantine and Ottoman rule. He has contributed extensively to academic journals and served as co-editor of the Mediterranean Language Review and section editor of New Pauly. He's also been a panelist. This is his fourth stint with us as a panelist on different things. Welcome, Yanni, and thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you a lot for the invitation, Louis, and it's always good to be here. Just to add some things, and first, apart from many other occasions, I would also thank my friend Richard Wittman for the excellent collaboration and for the many efforts he did to save, together with Freie Univeritat, the archives of Athos. I would like to add several things, which in part coincides with what Dr. Nikopoulos said. First of all, the legal status or the constitutional situation of Mount Athos. No, we have now a pretty number of documents published, and it is a disadvantage in Ottoman studies. Usually, this begins already with Franz Georg Meyer, to concentrate on single documents, no? But they are in documents which concern special cases, no, judgments and so on, trials. Vanessa gave us an overview, and there are documents which are crucial for the international status of Mount Athos even today. And we know now more or less 25 Greek and about 5 to 10 Ottoman documents, which are basic for the whole international status of Mount Athos even today. And as far as the Byzantine time and then the modern Greek time, so after 1930, is concerned, Dr. Nikopoulos has done a very good work in Greek, no, which is now we are expecting the English translation. But for the legal stuff, no, Richard Wittman said this, no, is it comparable to Dubrovnik Ragusa? Is it comparable, for example, to other vassal states of the Ottoman Empire, maybe Wallachia? No, we have other instances where the Ottomans renounced of direct rule. How should we cope with this? And this is actually the other project which I propose to Louis, because you never know which other archival material you will find. But what we have at the moment are about these 30, a bit more maybe, documents which should be edited in a modern manner, so coping with the exigencies of modern philological scholarship. and translated into modern Greek and English, commented juridically, and interpreted in the light of international law. No, and this, so actually what you can do, you can talk a lot about Mount Athos. I have no objection. You can talk about Metochia, and this is all important. No, it's like a mosaic which is growing. But to really show what was the role of Mount Athos for the Ottomans. Now, Richard Wittman said something, Dr. Nikopoulos wrote something. You will not find very much material for the basic options. So my proposal, this is also where this funding should work, is to do this work, to re-edit it, because Archive del Athos is not, in many points, is not valid anymore. The basic constitutional charters of Mount Athos, to translate them and to commend them from an Ottoman, Byzantine, post-Byzantine, and from the standpoint of international law. Then I would like to add several things, or to stress some things which have not been said so much. Mount Athos, if you study Byzantine studies, you learn inevitably that almost all Byzantine archives have been lost, except Mount Athos and so on. So you normally, for Byzantine archives and post-Byzantine archives, for the Balkans, no, you go to Venice or you go to Vienna. But not too many people know that the Ottoman archives of Mount Athos are the second biggest Ottoman archive in the world. So this is this is of incredible importance, and not only this was stressed by Tassos Nikopoulos, not only for the small Chersonissos, the island of Mount Athos, but the Metochia, Kosovo, Romania, you have, in Asia Minor, which is today Turkey. It is the only, in my view, the only substantial possibility to understand this. One point is also important, which has not been stressed, in my view, sufficiently. The Orthodox Church becomes, already in the 11th century, but then progrediently, an Ottoman, first a Seljuk and then an Ottoman institution. So you cannot say that one day, say 1453, whatsoever, they began writing Ottoman. The oldest Ottoman documents on Mount Athos, which we know, are from the 60s of the 14th century. So much older than those which are kept in the Başbakanlık archive in Istanbul. So you have for at least 100 years, you have a transitional period between the Byzantine documents in Greek and the Ottoman documents in Ottoman Turkish. But even this overlaps, because you have documents in Arabic, which has been said, and so on. And this continues even after the 15th century. So from Ottoman times, you have a lot of documents which are in Old Romanian, in Georgian, in Church Slavonic, and they even in Greek, because the monasteries provided between them Greek translations of many of the documents. Sometimes the Ottoman original is lost or whatsoever. So you have to compare this. So my proposal, these different versions, the circulation of manuscripts, and so on. So my proposal is to begin what Richard Wittman said is completely correct. And to begin at the same time, also because there is some social unrest in Greece about the status of Mount Athos, lawsuits and whatsoever, to do as a project linked to this, but financed hopefully from another source, about the constitutional charters of Mount Athos. And then, this is my final remark. No, this was mentioned by Vanessa. Islamic law, we know only 2 points. We know now about Sharia much more than 20 or 30 years ago. No, there is the wonderful book by Christian Müller. No, it shows how flexible, no, I think Richard Wittman said, how flexible the Sharia could be. And then second point, Ottoman law, this sounds strange, is not automatically Islamic. An Ottoman judge, you can read this in Richard Wittman, had the possibility to choose between adet, so ethimiko dikio, customary law, the kanuname of the sultans, which in effect is a Byzantine, sometimes also Mongol tradition, and the Sharia. And this in the many centuries, 600 centuries almost changed. So we should not be surprised that you have a noble fatwa written in Arabic or Arabic Ottoman language, and at the same time the judge in Thessaloniki or wheresoever could act with the sultanic canon, which is just the opposite. So you have a lot of flexibility from the side of the Ottomans. This is what Richard said, to cope with the Christian subjects. Oh, and this is so fascinating for us today. A national law, a unified law, is something which is automatical. The law in a country, in a sovereign country, is valid for all the subjects. Nobody has posed so far if the Ottoman state could act as a sovereign state, in the sense, all of us, we have internalized Thomas Hobbes or Jean Baudin. Was the Ottoman state in such a condition to do this, to act like this? Or did they permit a plurality of laws? This is why it is so difficult for modern Greece to understand this. This is what I had to say. Thank you a lot, and I'm waiting for your questions.
Yeah, let me ask you a question, because we have discussed a research proposal that was headed by Hero monk Theophilos Pantokratrinos of the monastery of Pantokratos at Mount Athos. Can you just describe it a little bit? I think it's entitled "The Statutory Documents of Mount Athos, Historical, Legal, and Philological Documentation." Can you just tell us the importance of this research study and this proposal, which requires some funding?
Yeah, it is like this. If we go what Richard Wittman described and also others, and we first digitize all the documents, sometimes they have to be restored. This is what Maciek said. No, then we have to transliterate, to transcribe them with modern help or not. Then we have to translate them. Then we have to interpret them from a juridical or historical, local, whatsoever. This will be many, many years. The sub-project Father Theophilos and myself from Freie Universitat proposed is more limited, but it is more practical, because there is a lot of social unrest and a lot of, even you can say a lot of gossip all over Greece. What is with these metochia, with these confiscations, with the apalotriosis and so on. And there are very few studies which really investigate the status of Mount Athos as a legal Ottoman institution. We have now a new book by two Turkish scholars, the Orthodox Church as an Ottoman institution. But there Mount Athos is interestingly enough missing. So all this paleographical, philological, and so on work is useful, but the main point should be a historical, juridical, and analysis from the point of social history. So this project by Father Theophilos is to take just a limited number, say 30 is realistic, no known Ottoman documents, some of them in Greek, edited more or less well in Archive de Latos, to translate them in an accessible form to English and to modern Greek, to make an analysis and to make, first of all, a conclusion. This is what, now, is Mount Athos comparable to Ragusa Dubrovnik? Was it a state inside the state? Had it an autonomy? What was the grip of the Ottoman state on this monastic state? Because this is so difficult for us to understand. No, you know, maybe you know the scandal about Mor Gabriel in Turkey. This is actually the same question, or the question of secularization in France or Bavaria and so on. This is what the modern state does with these monastic possessions. But was the Ottoman state a modern state? No, and we know now that the Sharia is not the only basis of the Ottoman state. Oh, and I have now an unknown small Ottoman archive where I transliterated the documents. There are not many. It shows that everything which is written down there, and some of them are metochia or ex-metochia of Mount Athos, is so much in contradiction to Sharia. You should really begin to ask, what was the status of all of this? Nobody controls this, actually. Oh? And this is the aim is to provide a kind of illumination, of illustration of the uncertainties concerning Mount Athos. And what we ask for is a limited funding, actually to one person who does actually to two persons who do the Greek and the Ottoman translations, and so on. And one, this would be a lump sum for a helper, what a German would is his Hilfskraft, to do the copies, to do the library work and so on. That's it. And this is much more limited.
Thank you, Janja, for that. For the panelists, it's extremely late where some of you are. It's 11, 12 o'clock in some cases. So what I'd like to do, and we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this in another session, but I'd like to just wrap it up and just have some final comments by each panelist, whatever you want to say, basically, and just some final remarks. We'll start with Jamshid. Jamshid, are you here?
Yes.
Some final remarks, if you can.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Well, sorry, I was in the car, actually. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. It was quite, in a way, informative, in a way, interesting to see the issue from these different perspectives. Actually, each of us look at it from different perspectives. And it was good. Thank you again for organizing this. And I hope for more of such collaborations and sharing ideas again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Vanessa, some final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Louis. So I'd just like to, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So I'd just like to emphasize that every Ottoman archival document on Athos is precious. Every document tells a story, and in order to understand that story and to accurately extract the data, visible and invisible, multi-disciplinary collaboration is absolutely necessary. And as just one quick point regarding the metochia of the Athenite monasteries in Anatolia, a publication is coming up, And I'm happy to share more information with you about that because I have already begun extensive research on that topic.
Thank you so much. Maciek, some final thoughts?
Yes, thank you. It was very interesting to listen to others as well, and it feels like there is a big thinking already about, you know, how you could approach the digitization in a larger scale. And what Richard mentioned about the technologies was particularly interesting to my field. And I think I would leave it there with the thought that, yeah, there are a lot of technologies not only for discovery, but making it available and available for sharing. Things like AAAF framework, which is widely adopted in the archive and library worlds, and allows you to really open collaboration and scholarship. And that's what I would like to end on.
Thank you so much. Father Cosmas?
Thank you, Mr. Louis. Would like to underline that it is very important for the monasteries to have very good editions of the Ottoman documents because I have a personal experience when you have a big legal case with the Greek state. I found out that one of the most important title deed was not translated and was not used despite the fact that this case was for about 20 years. So it is very, very important for the monasteries to have very valuable tools, and I think that Archives Delatos, despite the problems that it have in commentary, it's a very valuable tool, and because the editions are very well, very high level, and I think we must have something similar for the Ottoman documents. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Cosma, for that very important point that came out, quite frankly, that there's a lot of issues and a lot of the disputes are taking place because the documents are not necessarily all translated to demonstrate who actually owns something. Anastasios, some final thoughts for today?
I would like just to highlight the argument of Professor Niehoff Panagiotidis. He told about the unique status, the unique regime of Mount Athos recognized by the Ottomans as a Ottoman institution, a state into the frame of another state, a state into the frame of an empire, the Ottoman Empire. So we all today, we have to research, to study and to edit the documents of this institution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anastasia. Richard, some final thoughts?
It's always a dilemma for a historian to decide if you want to pick an interesting document, work on it, publish it, and engage in some discussion with your peers. Or in this case, when I saw the wealth of material, to say, well, we also have an obligation to first preserve the material and also to make sure that it becomes accessible to research in general. And mind you, with the effort to digitize these materials, this is much grander in ambition than a mere catalog, because you will make, in a way, if it's a good digitization at least, you make it available to 50% of mankind. The women who are not allowed access to Mount Athos directly, this will really open up an incredible trove for historic study. And I think in a joint effort, this will be a great service to the academic community, but also to the monasteries themselves, because they also don't know everything that's in their archives. So we need to help them also with the reading of these texts to make best use of them.
Thank you, Richard. What I'm getting out of this conversation is it's important not only for historical purposes and people to know what's in the archives, etc., but it becomes almost a legal issue today. There are legal issues today, apparently, that are not resolved because some of these archives have not been translated properly. So I find this discussion very fascinating. Yang, some final thoughts?
Only little. It is in the end, because the problem of taking monastic possessions was also very important issue in Germany, in France, during the French Revolution, in the Protestant countries in general, and so on. And it is a question of the character of the Ottoman state in the end. No, and we see today an Islamic state. Everybody of us knows about the so-called Daulat al-Islamiyya, as an intolerant state, annihilating cultural differences or killing people or whatsoever. And now you look at the Ottoman state, and all of our categories, which we used to use as Islamologists, Ottomanists, Byzantinists, whatsoever, they do not work anymore. But to understand this is actually what we need, what would be good, is to have an Ottoman Thomas Hobbes to interpret how this worked. And there is astonishingly little literature by bibliography on this issue. This is what I had to say. So thank you a lot.
Listen, thank you all for staying with us and being with us. And it's very late, I know, in Iran, in Turkey, in Greece,
Mount Athos.
Athos, in Cambridge, in London. This has been a fascinating discussion, which we're going to continue, obviously, going forward. I want to thank you all for an amazing discussion, and I hope the audience enjoyed it. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Louis, for getting proscription.
Thank you again, guys, and Kalinichta to you guys.
Kalinichta.
Thank you. Kalinichta.
Kalinichta.